All
Thank
right,
you.
turning now to the war in Europe, where the conflict has stretched into the second week of 2023. This past week, members of the Senate Armed Services Committee visited Kyiv and met with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. The Senate Armed Services Committee helps oversee the tracking of funds and materials sent to Ukraine. Independent Senator Angus King of Maine says while he was there, he was impressed by Ukraine's level of accounting and accountability for those assets. And Senator King joins us now. He's a member of the Senate Intelligence and Armed Services Committee, as we mentioned. Thank you very much for being on this morning. It's good to see you. Happy New Year. Tell us more about your trip.
Well, first, I have to say how much I admire Speaker Bowers. America is worth it, is what he said. Boy, that was wonderful and really inspirational. And frankly, the trip was inspirational. It's not easy to get to Kyiv. It involves flying into Poland and then a 10-hour overnight train ride, and then a full day of meetings, including with President Zelensky. And as you mentioned, one of the parts of the mission for me was accountability. We're spending a lot of money defending Ukraine, as we should, and I certainly will argue that with all comers. But we've got to be sure it's being spent effectively and well and according to the rules that we're putting in place. And that's what that's one of the things that I really was focused upon. In fact, I raised it with President Zelensky himself. I said, look, if you have a scandal, if you misuse these resources, it's going to sink the support in the U.S. And he got that. And then we had a later meeting with a lot of their defense officials and government officials. They're doing detailed software. They're keeping track of every spare part that comes into the country. We're sending over an inspector general from the Pentagon this month. So I came away very impressed by the level of accountability that's going on. And people who say, oh, we're wasting this money and it's going to go all these different places, I would urge them to go and look for themselves or to just sit down with people in the State Department and the Defense Department. Accountability is a big part of this project.
Senator King, let me ask you about how the war is going itself. As we, from what we see, the reports coming out of the war zone, from the reports we read, it seems to be a tale of two wars. You have the inhumanity, the terror-style attacks, the indiscriminate bombing of civilians by Vladimir Putin. On the other side, you've got the war on the ground, where it looks like Putin's ability to actually win this war is closing. The window is closing by the day. The Ukrainians continuing to strengthen their positions. Tell us what was your assessment as you got back onto that train and coming back to Poland and back to the United States? How is the war going?
Well, you put it just right, Joe. There are two wars. One is a brutal trench warfare in the east. It's slow going. There's a town called Bakhmut where there's a huge battle going on. People are dying every day. It is a very tough slog. It's essentially a stalemate right now. Both sides are trying to do something about it. Both sides are trying to move one way or the other. And that's one of the reasons we sent Bradley fighting vehicles as part of this most recent set of support, because that's really what's going on down in that eastern part of the country. The other war is Putin's war on civilians. I was at the headquarters of the electrical system in Kyiv, which was bombed. They had struck that building as part of this campaign to put people away from electricity. And by the way, one of the other problems that we don't know much about here, they have what's called district heating in many places in Ukraine, which means instead of having a furnace in your home, there's a big central heating area that heats apartment buildings and large buildings like that from a central place. So they're trying to strike that as well. And when we were there, it was very cold. I can tell you that. So it is two wars, and but let me end with this. Putin's last gasp is dividing us. That's his goal. He knows that he's not going to be able to defeat the determined people of Ukraine as long as the West is supplying them with the material and weapons that they need. So what he's trying to do now is divide us, and that's what really bothers me, is hearing this crowd in the Congress talking about cutting off aid. We got to help our own people first. These people are dying for us, for our values. And if you don't stop dictators, history tells us they're going to keep going. I mean, you don't have to go back further than 1938 in the Sudetenland. So this is where the rule of law and democracy is being fought out, and the people of Ukraine are on the front lines, and we need to continue to support them.
Senator Angus King of Maine, thank you very much for being on. It's really good to see you. We appreciate it.
Nice.